So there's a really great quote that you may have heard, and I'm gonna not say it accurately. But the quote is, I'm just going to my page while I'm saying this to share this video so people can see it. The quote is something like, you don't get what you want, you get what you are. Meaning that what you attract in your life is based on who you are at a really deep level, not necessarily what you want. So if you're into the law of attraction, you're into manifesting, then you've probably heard this phrase before, that particularly when you work with the law of attraction, it's based on like the deeper resonance of who you are that's calling in things in your life, not necessarily your desire for what you want. So that can put you in a bit of a pickle though, right? Because now we're manifesting things or attracting things into our life or creating experiences in our lives. So let's put it in the active instead of the passive. So we're not just calling in, we're actively creating these experiences in our lives. Now we're creating experiences that are slightly below the conscious level. So we're in a little bit of a bind, right? Because we want to bring things into our life. We want to have certain types of relationships, certain types of experiences, whether that's financial abundance or it's, hey Trevor, financial abundance or a type of relationship or a type of just ease or something. So we want something in our life, but the slightly unconscious subconscious, we'll put it as subconscious, not unconscious, the slight subconscious is what's drawing those experiences into our life, not necessarily our conscious desires. Because our consciousness is always going to say, well, of course I want to be happy. Of course I want to be wealthy. Of course I want to have harmonious relationships. Of course I want to feel healthy and lose weight. But if we don't have any of those things showing up in our lives, you know, we have contentious relationships, money problems, rocky relationships, anger issues, addiction problems. Like if we have those things going on, then there's more than meets the eye that's happening, right? There's something happening behind the level, below the level, beneath the level of the conscious mind. So now we've got to get into, well, how do I bring those things together? Because if my life is a reflection of who I am, not what I want, and the things that I get in my life are a reflection of who I am, not what I say that I want, then I've got to somehow figure out how to trick the part of me I don't even know is doing something to get the things that I want, right? We've got to do like a little bit of deeper manipulation and searching. And this is where we can get into navel gazing for quite a while, and where some people just sort of write off the entire self-help and personal development industry, like, oh, what are you doing? And, you know, is it voodoo or is it this? And it's like, no, we're just looking at the way that we've chosen to be and how we can tweak that to be more in alignment with the type of life that we want. So let me give you an example, because this is on my mind, because one of my really good friends, like just an amazing woman, has had a long line of terrible boyfriends. Like terrible, not particularly nice. And they all had the exact same habits. They were really, really confident, but it was covering up some massive insecurity. They'd been, you know, really wounded people. They were very successful in business and life. They were confident, but it turned out to be like they seemed like they had it all together, like let me take care of you, but it actually ended up being more like control. So she's looking at this pattern. This is my friend telling me this, and we had a big aha moment, and I want to share the general aha with you, but not the specifics of her life, of course, right? So she's looking at this pattern and saying, wow, it's all the same. They're all having these exact same traits. And then she had this big moment of like, whoa, I don't need that in my life anymore. And all of a sudden, these people that she'd been interacting with just stopped. They stopped being attractive to her. She stopped being attractive to them. And literally overnight, in an instant, other people started being attractive, people she never would have looked at in her life, people who didn't even realize that she was in the room all of a sudden notice her and start saying, you know, nice things. And this is an example. If that was too vague, let me know, because I can give you more details if it was too vague. But basically the point is, we have a dominant energy, and that dominant energy is subconscious. And much of the time that dominant energy is based in fear. So my friend was attracting people who seemed confident but were actually arrogant to cover up insecurity, who seemed successful but were actually personally quite insecure, who seemed like they were caring but actually they were controlling. And all of those things were things that her conscious mind was looking for out of fear. I need to feel safe. I need to feel secure. I need to feel financially stable. And so she was looking for signs in the partners that she had of people who would check those boxes. That's the level of the conscious mind, right? But even her conscious mind was like, no, I don't need any of that. I'm a successful woman. I can do what I want. I can take care of myself. But that deeper fear was still there, the fear that I'm not going to be okay, I'm not going to be taken care of, that I'm broken, that, you know, whatever it is. And so that little bit behind, the person that she still was calling in and attracting that superficial level of person, right? So by superficial, I mean they look good on paper, but it's not true. There's a disconnect between who they really are. And when that happens, that means that your dominant energy is calling in the experience. And the dominant energy doesn't, you can change that. So when she had this realization of, oh my gosh, all of these people are the same, I don't need that in my life, I'm okay. I'm okay. And truly, truly got that, then fear as her dominant energy took second seat to love as her dominant energy, safety as her dominant energy, I'm okay as her dominant energy. And as soon as that happened, now all of a sudden the experiences in her life changed completely and drastically and in literally 10 minutes, right? So all of a sudden the people in her life looked different. The ones she used to be attracted to, she was no longer attracted to, and vice versa. And the people she'd never even noticed before all of a sudden looked like shining lights. Boom, over an instant. Literally this was in a span of a couple minutes. So this is what we're talking about. When you want to have things in your life but you're not seeing them, then the dominant energy that's playing out in you is most likely a dominant energy of fear, which means you're actually calling in the opposite. So a lot of us do this with money. We say we want money, but we're saying we want money because we're experiencing the lack of it. And Abraham Hicks talks about this a lot if you YouTube some of those videos. So we're in a space of saying, yes, I want more, I want more, I want more, but saying I want more is based on the belief that I don't have enough. And so what's actually happening is the dominant energy is not enough. There's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. So what we're getting is not enough, right? So we've got to switch the dominant energy. And this is why people talk so much about gratitude, so much about appreciation, so much about counting your blessings. They're not trying to trick you into feeling better, except that they're trying to literally trick you into feeling better, right? Because we've got to switch the dominant energy from lack to abundance. And when we do that, then we call in more abundance because now we're in that place and our fear isn't driving our decision making. Just like my friend, her fear, whether it was conscious or not, was driving her decision making about the partner she chose. And so she was choosing people who superficially on paper seemed to meet her requirements, but yet were not a good match at all because they were matching at her fear, which just created more experiences of unhappy fear. But as soon as she switched that dominant energy and love was now present for her, meaning there was a wholeness, she wasn't making decisions from the dominant energy of fear, then she could attract in healthy relationships, right? So really, really powerful. And you may have seen on Facebook this photo that goes around, and every now and then it talks about the two wolves. And they say it's a Native American story about two wolves and which wolf you feed, the wolf of fear, the wolf of love. It's the same concept, right? That we have dominant energy, and our dominant energy determines what ends up showing up in our life. So this is what we've got to think about. Well, then how do I switch dominant energy when it's playing out behind the scenes, when it's playing out subconsciously? Because that's a tricky thing. How do I work with things that I'm not aware that I'm doing? And we've got to pick, let's just pick a topic. So, you know, we've got to start somewhere. Hey guys, thanks for coming. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this or questions. If you're just joining, we're talking about dominant energies that we have and how when our dominant energy is fear, then we end up getting experiences in our lives that support that fear or at least replicate it. Or if our dominant energy is lack, then we end up with more lack. So an example of that would be money, where we say, I want more money, and that's the conscious thought, I want more money. But that conscious thought is based on a subconscious thought, which is there's not enough. So the subconscious energy is not enough, and that's what we're putting out. So you get who you are, not what you want, right? So then how do we put those things together? And there's so many little practices that so many of us blow off, right? So we pick a topic, any topic. So maybe for you it's relationships, for other people it's going to be money, Maybe it's going to be health, like I want to lose weight, but we struggle with that, or I want to feel good about my body, but we don't. Maybe it's, what would be some other topics? Bosses, relationships, patience. I know a lot of people who struggle with their own self-shaming about their own choices and their own patience and whether or not they're a good person. So you could choose that as a topic as well. So we choose a topic, and then we've got to look at, okay, what is it that I'm experiencing? And what does that say that I believe? So like just as if we were an investigator, like a detective, and we're going to reverse engineer what's happening. So let's look at our life and just guess, well, what does the life say that I'd be thinking? So if it wasn't you, let's do it for my friend. So the friend I was talking about who kept attracting people who seemed confident, but they were actually very insecure, who seemed like they were very caring, but they were actually controlling, and who seemed very successful, but they were actually a bit of a mess, right? Who seemed like they'd be great partners on paper, but they actually treated her like crap, and they weren't reliable. So let's look at her life and say, okay, well, what can we guess that she was actually feeling and thinking? We can guess that she was probably thinking, I'm not enough, because she kept calling in people who were really insecure and quite controlling, right? So when we don't feel like we're enough, we try to control our environment in order to feel validated and like we have some type of say in our lives. What else might she have been thinking? She might, on a deep level, have the belief that that she's not safe without another person. So, okay, that comes from lack, like I'm not enough on my own. Okay, so now we're back into the I'm not enough stage. All right, so what other belief might have been playing out? That financial security, like I'm not capable of it, so it has to come from somebody else, because she kept attracting very wealthy men. Okay, so that goes back to I'm not enough, because we're not creating, I'm not safe by myself, I'm not able to take care of myself, I'm helpless, all of that type of thing. So we can reverse engineer and say, okay, let's guess that a couple of these beliefs are actually playing out on a deeper level. And then we look at how can we address those beliefs. So then we look at things like, okay, well, if it's that you don't feel like you're safe to be by yourself, let's now look at all the ways that either you're not by yourself. One of my favorite exercises was making lists of support every day, meaning, so, people say make a list of gratitude, and I'm like, yes, sometimes that's hard for some of us, but we can always make a list of support, meaning I can't leave the house without seeing how I'm supported. I can't make this video without seeing how I'm supported, because literally hundreds of thousands of people have gone into the creation of this machine with the capability to talk to this dot that's coming out of the side of you and hearing sound and picture and color and the computer. I mean, millions of hands and some level have touched this interaction. Just like I get in my car on the road and thousands of people have come together to create my ability to drive on a city street. So I may be in the car alone, I may feel very alone in the world, but I am inherently never alone. There's nothing I can do in my life that has not been touched by somebody else. I can't go to the grocery store without people who've raised food, processed food, brought food, stocked food, sold food, packaged food, marketed food. It's not possible. So you can't be alone. So making lists of support. And we start to unwind those beliefs. Maybe going back to the feeling of not enough, like, okay, well, where do we need to address that? What types of things would help us really shift that belief of I'm not enough? And maybe it's surrounding yourself with people who make you feel really good about yourself and actually accepting the things they say to you. So instead of blowing off compliments, you stand in them and say, thank you. Or instead of immediately coming back and saying, hey, you look great too, just pausing and saying, thank you. Thank you, I feel good too. Or making lists of all the things you've achieved. Like, I imagine if you're watching this, you potty trained. High five. Right? Like, we probably didn't acknowledge that. Actually, Shannon, if you're watching, Shannon Townsend here, go to her page. She actually teaches people how to learn how to appreciate themselves. So, and learn to be in that space of acknowledgement so that we actually feel good in our lives instead of just checking off things on the list, wondering why our human doing machine isn't doing enough, right? So this is how we do this work. This is why things like coaching and people like me even exist in the world, right? It's because we know that there's a disconnect, but we don't quite know how to address it because we want to address it on the level of consciousness. We want to address it on the level of what we see. I don't see enough money. I don't see a good relationship. I don't see this, so it must be that problem. It's that thing out there that's withholding from me. It's not giving to me. It's not, something's wrong with me, that it won't love me enough. God doesn't love me. Money doesn't love me. People don't love me. I'm broken. You know, we get into that line of thinking, or we get angry. Men are all jerks. Women are all assholes. Money's only for people who are greedy. You know, whatever, like, my boss is just a jerk. Oh, well, the system's set up to make me fail. Well, if Big Brother didn't do this, you know, we just rail against the other because it's the realm of the external that we see the problem. And we're upset that it's happening out there. How dare it not give us what we say we want? But the beauty of something like the law of attraction is that it's just who you are. So if you're seeing things you don't want, that's a reflection of who you are, not what you think you want. Because your thoughts are secondary. There's something that happened after the fact. It's like your mind is a really great rationalizer. So it's like in every moment, your mind isn't necessarily creating thought. It's explaining why you got here. So your mind is like, oh, this situation doesn't feel good. Let me find a reason for it. Well, it's because your boss is a total jerk, and he really doesn't like you because you didn't go to the right school, or you know you came from the wrong side of town, or you know whatever. So the mind rationalizes. It doesn't necessarily create for us. So on this level of conscious awareness, this tangible world that we're already seeing, we can't really do much about it. The only thing we can do is to use our conscious thought to address what's unconscious, what's subconscious, what's behind the scenes, actually creating who we are and how we're being in the world. And that is a really tricky job. So do the reverse engineering, and it may be more helpful to do it for somebody else, meaning like imagine yourself like a TV character. If we saw a TV character in the show, we know that their entire life's a disaster, but we know it's their own fault because they're doing this thing. They just can't see it, right? Because they're so caught up in their own story. So maybe you imagine yourself as a story, and you go through the story like that and say, what is it that must be at the core of this in order to be getting this experience? Because if you address what's at the core, the whole life will change. And one of the reasons that I know that this works, other than my friend's recent experience, and if you don't know what I'm referring to, go back and watch, because it really showed me about dominant energy, is one of the things that's recently happened for me is I got engaged. Here you go. Yay. Wonderful. It's awesome. Great. I have a wonderful person in my life. And here's the most interesting thing about it is I didn't feel like I should, right? Because my conscious mind is like, no, you're not ready for this. You don't deserve this. This isn't right for you. You know, he shouldn't be with you. He should be with somebody nicer. Because my conscious mind is like rationalizing why I feel bad, right? Or why my mind is like obsessing. Like it has its own habit that it plays out. And its habit, by the way, is just not particularly nice. I'm one of those people who has, a long years practicing beating myself up. That's why a lot of my clients beat themselves up. And it's because I'm like, yeah, welcome to the club. We know what to do with each other. So I have a lot of experience beating myself up. So my mind says, well, how could I have attracted this incredibly loving, wonderful relationship into my life when I'm still playing out on a conscious level all of this crap against myself, not against him, right? And this is dominant energy, because beneath the surface of what's happening in my mind, in a realm that I can hear, I can speak, I can write, I can understand, I can articulate, beyond the realm of that language, there is a dominant energy that I am. And that dominant energy had already switched, right? It had already switched from I'm not worthy, let's withhold love, to I am worthy and capable of love. And so here comes love in my life. Even when my mind isn't up to speed with it yet, right? Which is why you can have incredible experiences and you can sabotage them with your mind. And you can have incredible experiences before you think that you're ready for them and then come up to speed with them. Because your mind is always a little bit behind. Tangible life is always a little bit behind. So allow your mind to be the rationalizer, but also the detective. So if we want to get to a place where we say, I want this, and we're also that at the same time, so that the desire and the being are synonymous, This would be called instant manifestation, right? Something that very few people do in a big way, but many people do it a small way. I want a parking spot, there it is. Oh, I wish someone, I was just thinking of so-and-so, and then they call, or nowadays text, So we all have the ability to do this instant manifestation. It just tends to be about things we don't care about. But most of us want to be instant manifestors about things we do care about. Thanks, Shannon. Anybody, by the way, click on Shannon's thing, open a new tab, go friend her because she's amazing. And so we want to be instantly manifesting on big things, which means the people, the who that we are and the what that we want have to be at the same level. So we've got to do this process of learning how to reverse engineer ourselves and understand what is at the core behind the scenes. So I just encourage you, there's so many different practices that we could talk about here, and I don't really want to like go down in the depths of all of that, because it just depends on you and what you discover, your unique, like what you discover when you do the first practice. But I think the place to start is this reverse engineering. Like, let's view ourselves like a really cool case study, and if this is the life I have, then what beliefs must I have, right? So same thing happened when I got this ring. I felt discomfort. I was like, what is that? There's a space between this ring and me. Turn it this way. Okay, I have no problem. So it's not the commitment. It's not the person. The problem was the stone. Okay, so now we know the disconnect. Playing a little experiment. We're doing an experiment, right? What's the issue with the stone? The stone is beautiful. I don't feel worthy. All right, now we've reverse engineered something. Okay, why isn't it that I don't feel worthy, right? I don't feel worthy of receiving somebody's love on this level, that somebody else views me at this level of beauty, right? Oh, okay, there it is. Now let me get up to speed with that. Now I can find a practice that helps me address that belief. But we've got to figure out what the belief is first. So you can do these little investigations. That's just a tiny little example, right, that happened to me last week. But you can do these little investigations just by saying what's happening in your life. So maybe for you, you got another bill and your bank account's like about to bounce and you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? Well, what beliefs have to be at the base of that? There's never enough. I'm unsupported. I'm not in control. Money is calling the shots. I'm always behind. I'm never going to be able to get out of this. So lack, 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 right? So anybody who's in a space of lack, we've got to look at blessings. We've got to look at appreciation as the opposite energy. You might call that gratitude, but it's more the feeling of appreciation. Again, Abraham Hicks talks a lot about this, which is fantastic. But that's why it's not just a practice. It's not just like, oh, do this because, all good people in the world who are spiritually awakened do this. No, it's because we're changing the dominant energy of who you are. And if you want to be in the dominant energy of abundance, then we've got to be in the dominant energy of abundance, and we can't be in abundance when we're in lack. They literally do not go together. You've got to switch one to get there, right? So you can't switch what's outside of you. You're not in control of everything on that level. You can only switch the dominant energy of who you are. And once you do, in an instant, everything changes, as long as you hold it, right? Well, it's going to change in an instant, but then you got to hold it. So then we do an exercise like appreciation. If you discover that one of your dominant thoughts is I'm not enough, then there's a lot of different practices that we could approach based on where are you not enough? Are you not enough in relationships? Are you not enough in your own body? Are you not enough in your own intellectual competence? Like, where is it really showing up for you? And then we've got to do some work. So for some people, it might be work on an energetic level with chakras. For other people, it's going to be work of like deep healing through therapy. For other people, it could be work of doing like a tapping practice, like some type of mental reworking, reconnecting the dots of how we sort of got beliefs. I did a really cool hypnosis thing recently that helped me rewire some thoughts that had just gotten crossed needlessly, but with pretty drastic consequences. So the point of that is I don't want to talk necessarily about the specifics of any practice. The key part is to start with the reverse engineering of if your life looks like X, what must be the dominant energy that's creating that? Because if it's not what you want, then guess what? The dominant energy is not that great, right? Because it's who you are that determines what you get, not what you want. So just be real with yourself. Just be real. Like all of us, and let me just put a caveat here, or not a caveat, but like be really clear that all of us are really good people. So you're not going to find that your dominant energy is that you're an asshole. Pardon the language, right? But like, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about going to like, oh, well, I'm just a pathetic loser. Like, that's not a dominant energy. That's a belief about something, right? That's a belief that, I don't know, it could go to a lot of different things. You're not worthy. You're not good enough. You're not loved enough. All of those are worth things, right? Or lack-based things. So we gotta, but I guess what I'm trying to say there is like, so many of us are unwilling to look behind the curtain because we're afraid that we're going to find that we're terrible, and that actually we are broken, and actually we are unworthy of love, of God's love, of other people's love of money, of success in life, whatever that feels like for you. But it's just not true. It's just not true. So trust me that it's okay to look at the belief that's holding in your body, holding in who you are, that's creating this experience, because the belief is not you. It's just the belief that's there right now. And that can change. We're not changing you. In fact, we're getting rid of things that are sort of unnecessary accessories to you. And you're going to be more and more and more you in better and better ways. So we're not adjusting the core of who you are. We're adjusting like the false adaptation that got laid on top. And when we adjust that, then all of the goodness of you can come through in really powerful ways. And then your life will reflect the things that you most desire, because the person that you are and the things that you want will be more and more similar. Hey, Joanna. You just missed a really cool talk. And I know you have so much to add to this because you are like a living example of this. Joanna runs something called the Passion Expansion Project, and she really helps on the ground level with people, helping them rework these beliefs of who they are, so that the things in their life are a reflection of joy on a deep inner level. So if that actually is a really great person to look to. So if this video sparks you and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do that work, Joanna's got a group that she runs where she does this work. I do it on a really deep soul level. Joanna does it on like the passion joy level. So yeah, like so many good resources in this list. I'm so glad you guys are all here. And actually Susan does it on the body level. So Susan DeCoco, I'm like scrolling through the list, like who else do we need to give a shout out to here? But yeah, so basically at the core of it, don't be scared. Don't be scared, because we're not trying to change who you are. We're trying to get rid of the things that are not a really good reflection of who you are, because they're just stopping you from having, the things that you naturally desire and the ways that you want to be. It's like, what would be a really good example? It's like you're always wearing a Halloween costume that really is scary. Like, we're not adjusting you. We're just taking off the Halloween costume. So if everybody in your life is reacting to you like you look like Freddy Krueger, then it's possible that deep down you're wearing a Freddy Krueger outfit, right? So we're not going to change you, or we're not going to change you beneath the outfit. We're just going to take the outfit off so that not everybody looks at you in horror. And that's like a really good parallel to what we're talking about here. If the things in your life are not what you want, it's quite possible you're wearing a Freddy Krueger outfit. So we're just going to take that off. So reverse engineer. Reverse engineer first, and then I would love to hear you. So you can private message me. You can come back to this post and share it. But I would love to hear what you think, or what you found at the core that you think is playing out, that must be there, the beliefs that must be there in order to be having the experiences that you're having. And then we can talk about, okay, well, what's the next step? What practices are the best thing to address that? Because that is really unique to every person and every moment in time. For some people, journaling is going to work, and other people, other things are going to work. And sometimes it's too much of this and too little of that, Like that's where teachers are really helpful, or coaches are really helpful, because they go to the broad range of all options and they pick the right one for you at the right time. But start with that, and I would love to hear what beliefs you find are at the core of your dominant energy. And then we switch the dominant energy, which is the really cool part. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight like it did for my friend, but that was pretty incredible, right? She'd done years and years and years and years of work, and now we're at a tipping point where it was fear is the dominant energy, and she's building, 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 and then one day they switched, and literally within 10 minutes, her entire life reflected the switch in ways that we could never have imagined. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. So, whether or not she'll stay in that love space versus fear is a different question. but we know that the tipping point happened. I know for her, and she knows for her, like, this build was too big, now it's just going up, and fear's just going down. So she's never going backwards, right? She's never going back again. But that's really the power of switching the dominant energies. You're never going back. You're never going back. You might waver in it a little bit, wobble in it a little bit, but you're never going backwards because you built the foundation too high. So this is probably the most impactful work that you can do. It's not easy. I'm not saying like, oh, do it once and you're done, right? Like, this is the premise of coaching, period, personal coaching at least, is that you are permanently altering your dominant energy and thus permanently altering the state of your life and what you're capable of. So it's really amazing stuff with massive potential to change your entire life in all the ways that you want it to the point where you get to that instant manifestation level of desire and dominant energy, desire and being the same thing, which is pretty amazing. So, okay, I hope this was helpful, and I would love to hear from you about your dominant energy. Yeah, Shannon, she knows that you are right on top of this. I hope everybody goes and checks out everybody else on this list because you are all doing this work in some way. So, yay, thank you guys for being here. Mwah! Talk to you soon.